Imagine being up for a week or two and you can't tell the truth from the false. You think that everyone in your life is out to get you. You think they're plotting on you. You think that everyone's an undercover cop trying to bust you. You think that everyone's lying to you. You think that people are connecting into Bluetooth devices around you. You think that they're able to tap into your TV and they're listening in, and you're paranoid and you're scared, and people try and tell you, hey man, this isn't going on. Like, I'm not plotting against you. There's nothing going on. No one's trying to kill you. No one's trying to hurt you. No one's trying to get you arrested. You're just tripping, but you just can't see it. People can't bring you back down to reality. You've been awake for too long. You've been on too much meth, and that was meth psychosis for me. And it was some of the scariest stuff that I ever experienced. I was using meth for the last probably 5 years. Towards the end of my addiction, my thing was mainly opiates. It was also alcohol. It was also benzos, pills, weed. It was basically everything. I was the type of person that always seeked out substances over sobriety at all costs because I was uncomfortable sober. I felt anxious. I felt depressed. I felt like I discovered something magical when I found drugs and alcohol. And I didn't know when I started that I was going to deal with addiction, full-blown addiction. I didn't know it was going to be progressive and seem to always get worse. I didn't know that I wasn't going to be able to stop. I didn't know I was going to go to multiple detoxes, multiple rehabs. I didn't know that I would be in this just chaos 24/7 and on the merry-go-round, the addiction merry-go-round, where I would get sober for a period of time. I'd feel healthy. I'd look better. My head would kind of clear up, and I would go right back to it. And meth was towards the end. My main thing was opiates, but many opiate addicts, at least myself, when it gets to the point where you've done it for so long, and you feel like it's just not quite getting you high enough, or whatever the case, or your addiction has brought you to the point where you're homeless, many people will also do meth. Because it's like, you got nowhere to go. It's, hey, I don't know where I'm going to sleep. I don't want to sleep on the ground. Well, guess what? I'll do meth and I'll stay awake all night, and it'll give me the energy and the motivation to get more money for the opiates. See, that transfer, or that combination, is very common. And it often leaves people wondering, like, I knew they did pills, but man, they failed a drug test for meth. What's going on with that? And it's actually very common. It seems weird because it's so opposite to opiates. But a lot of times towards the end, when we're struggling pretty bad, it becomes one of the things that we end up using. And for years, I would smoke off and on, and I eventually was an IV drug user. And that's really, for me, where the psychosis came. I know that some people can get it from smoking it. Some people can get it from crushing it up and snorting it and being awake for a long time. Some people can get it especially from ingesting it. Many people don't know that, but that can happen pretty easily. And there's also people that will never experience it. I've talked to people that did meth for 20, 30 years, and they never experienced psychosis, never got to the point where they were having huge hallucinations and delusions and thought that people were out to get them. But I experienced it towards the end, and I want to kind of talk about what my experience was with it. And I also know that it can be different for everyone, but maybe you've been through it yourself, or maybe you have a loved one that's going through it, which is very, very painful because you don't know what to do. And you're probably wondering why. This is weird. This is weird behavior. I know they've always been using drugs, but them accusing me of, listening in on them, or stealing their stuff, or plotting to kill them, or plotting to hurt them, or just accusing me of all this crazy stuff, it gets you wondering, like, what's going on here? I've known for a long time this person had a problem, but they're acting way different. They are just way more paranoid than they've ever been. It could be psychosis. And I remember my first run-in with it was not actually my own experience. It was a friend was going through it. And I remember going over, and he was staying at a hotel at the time. And I remember going over there, and we got high, and I left, and I went to where I was staying at. And I remember getting a text message from him about an hour later, and he's like, dude, why are you guys still here? Why are you guys in the elevator? Why are you guys talking all this shit on me? You guys are making a bunch of noise. It sounds like you're destroying the elevator. I'm going to get in trouble. They know you were here at the hotel visiting me. And, my name is connected to the room and I'm going to have to pay for that. And I remember going, what the hell is he talking about? We weren't at the hotel. We had left a long time ago. We were nowhere near the hotel. What's going on with him? Well, he was experiencing psychosis. I know this now, and I knew that once I started to experience it myself. But think about that. He's sitting in his room, and he could hear all of us. He thinks he even knows where we're at. He thinks we're in the elevator. He can hear us destroying the elevator, making all this noise, and he can also hear us talking shit on him. Now, mind you, I used that elevator when I went to see him at his room. It was nowhere near the room. Nowhere near. There's no way in hell, even if we were there, destroying the elevator and screaming about him, he wouldn't have been able to hear it. But see, that it didn't he didn't realize that. It kind of defies reality. You're almost in this psychological trance where you don't even realize, like, hey, how am I hearing people talking about me when those people aren't even here? But I'll tell you what, it feels very real, and it's absolutely scary. I want to talk a little bit about what I experienced as time went on, and I used the drug more and more, and I started to stay up for days at a time, sometimes even weeks, and eventually I hit psychosis. And my thing mainly was this huge paranoia of cops, and I was selling drugs at the time, and basically just to make money so that I could use enough. I was a terrible drug dealer, never really made money. I was my only customer pretty much, and I got to the point where I was very paranoid, and I felt like everyone was an undercover cop, and I would see some of the same cars as I drove around, and it started to get scarier than that, though. It went from thinking that people were, like, trying to bust me to where people were actually trying to, like, cause harm to me. People were after me, trying to kill me, and I remember talking to friends about this who weren't using, and them sitting me down and saying, dude, no one's after you. No one. Like, no one's after you. Because they'd say, well, who is it? I had no answer for it, right? But I could swear that people were after me. It got so bad one time that I remember I was walking down the street, and I was homeless at the time, and I don't even know how long I had been awake for, but I was seeing these cars driving by, and obviously it's just people driving by. That's all it was. But to me, I'm seeing the same cars, and I'm hearing them talking about how they have guns and everything, and they're after me and they're looking for me. And there was a couple coincidences because there was cars that were driving by that, like, made U-turns, like, right by me and stuff. And that's another thing that makes psychosis even worse. Sometimes there's these weird coincidences that make you, like, almost affirm that, hey, this is really going on, but they're just coincidences. And I remember running to this house that I was by, and I remember, like, knocking on the door real quick, and this lady answers, and I'm like, hey, there's people after me. They're trying to kill me. And I'm, like, dripping sweat, it's like nighttime. It's not even hot outside. But I was so scared. She could see it on my face. Like, I was so scared. And because I could tell at first she was thinking, oh, is this some kind of scam? Like, you never know nowadays. People are banging on the door, acting like they need help. Next thing you know, you open the door and they're running into your house, But she could tell that I was actually really scared. And I remember her kind of saying, okay, you're not going to come inside, but we'll put you in the backyard or whatever. So she puts me in the backyard, and I'm sitting there, and I could see her husband inside, like, loading his gun and everything, like, just in case, because they're probably thinking, what the hell? Like, we're sitting here about to go to bed, and this dude comes up who we don't know, and he's banging on the door saying he needs help. Like, it just doesn't seem normal, right? And I remember her walking outside, and she goes, hey, the cops are on their way or whatever. And I think she was kind of warning me, like, hey, like, if you're up to something, like, you should probably just leave. But I stayed there. I sat there because I thought this stuff was really happening, and there's no one that could convince me it wasn't. And that's psychosis for you. It's, you really think that this stuff is going on, even when people are trying to explain to you, look, dude, this isn't going on. You need sleep. You've been awake for too long. You've been getting high for too long. I couldn't believe it. I remember the cops show up and they talked to me for a while and they end up letting me go. I didn't have anything on me. They probably could have brought me in, but I remember them saying like, dude, you need to get off the meth, and saying like, get the hell out of here. You better not get, we don't want to even see you or hear from you tonight. Just get out of here. And I remember walking away and I'm like, how did they know? How do they know I'm on meth? Well, it's obvious to anyone from the outside looking in, but that's how crazy psychosis is I couldn't believe that they even knew. It was obvious. I was doing that stuff all day, every day. You could tell by looking at me. My face was all picked out. I was like super just sucked up. I was not mentally there. My pupils were huge. I was, sweating at nighttime when it wasn't even hot. Everything was pointing to meth, but I couldn't accept it. And I want to talk a little bit too about some of the other things that people experience. A lot of times it has to do with electronics. They think that people are listening in. You've seen the Breaking Bad episode where they're digging in the ground or whatever. They think there's like a device in the ground, or you've seen, movies or whatever where people are like breaking in the walls. They think there's listening devices in the walls. Well, there's a thing to that, and many people have had the same kind of thing in psychosis where they think that someone's listening in either through the TVs, or sometimes it's the Bluetooth devices, and people get really paranoid about that. You also hear every once in a while people talking about gang stalking, and that's basically like all these people, a network of people working together to stalk you and mess with you. And I experienced a little bit of that. Like I remember one time sitting on a patio of an apartment, I'm looking down in the streets right there, and I'm seeing this, every car that drives by, I'm literally seeing people I know driving. Like even if they're hauling ass by to the point where you barely even see in the car, there's basically cars driving by with huge tinted windows where you can't see anything in the car. And I'm still like, oh, I know that person. Oh, I know that person, or you think that you see a lot of the same cars everywhere and stuff. And what I've realized is it can look a little bit different for everyone. There's some people who go through the same stuff. I've noticed a lot of times they're thinking everyone's an undercover, stuff like that, or they're out to get you. That's pretty common. Some people get the gang stalking. Some people think that, people are talking to them over intercom. Some people think that, even sometimes their family members are stealing stuff from them. They'll send you'll get a random text message saying, hey, like, where's my, iPad? I know that you stole my iPad last night. And it's stuff like that, to where you're thinking like, what the hell are they talking about? And it can be scary, because when someone's going through this and they're kind of either accusing you of stuff or they're telling you what's going on with them, it's normally some very dramatic, like drastic, chaotic stuff. And I could see how it could make the family member who's not using just say, what the hell, man? And start to really worry. And the thing about psychosis is it's very scary to the person experiencing it. And I've noticed too, when I'm driving around and I see people that are homeless and stuff, and maybe some of it's mental health, maybe some of it's meth psychosis, but you see them like talking to themselves, and another thing that people get sometimes is they think that, I call it like the prophetization, where they think there's some type of prophet, or they think that God is speaking to them, because what they're hearing is like a voice. And sometimes they think it's, God speaking to them. And that's why you hear about people doing weird ritualistic stuff, or just doing crazy stuff out in public. Or you'll hear about someone running around with like a machete in the middle of the street and threatening people and stuff. And people think, oh, that's just mental health. Well, it's like, maybe it's meth psychosis too. That's what's scary too, is you never really know what the person who is experiencing, like what's going on in their head. Like they may act, and this is what makes it scary, is they may actually think that you're trying to kill them, but you're not. You haven't said one word to them. You may not even know them. That's what makes it so scary. And I also remember too, one time thinking that, you just seem to think that people are always doing stuff behind your back. Like they're always lying to you about something. And the thing that makes it hard is it's hard to convince someone when they're going through this that the things that they are experiencing are not real, because to them it feels so real. And the scary thing about psychosis too is it can continue on after you stop using. And that's really a warning sign. That's when you know that it's getting really bad, because I remember experiencing that a couple times where I stopped using, and most of the time I would stop, I would get some sleep, I'd drink some water, I'd eat some food, and things would really calm down. But there was a couple times where it lasted a couple days after I stopped. And that's when you know that it's getting really bad and that something really needs to be done about it. But I don't know, it's a scary drug. It's a scary drug, and my hope is that anyone out there who is starting to experience any of that stuff, or if you have a family member who's experiencing that stuff, is that that you can really try and get them help. It's tricky though, because a lot of times if you're trying to talk to them when they are full blown in the middle of it, like I look back on my experience and there was no one that could have convinced me what I was seeing and hearing and feeling was going on was not true. Like there was just no one that could convince me of that. But if you would catch me after I've come down a little bit, after I've slept for a little bit, and then you would talk to me about it, I would be much more susceptible to thinking about getting help. And a lot of times what helped me is I had friends that would, they weren't very aggressive in trying to convince me that what I thought was wrong, but they were just calmly talking to me like, okay, so you think that I was listening in on this Bluetooth device this morning, right? It's like, yeah, like I know you were. I could hear you doing it. It's like, okay, well, do you know where I was today? Like, I was working today. And oh, really? And yeah, and you know where I work, right? It's like 20 miles away. Yeah, I know where you work. I know where you work. And just kind of calmly talk them through it and just ask valid questions about it. Well, how is that possible? You think that I've connected to that intercom up there and was, purposely saying stuff to you to piss you off. Well, how did I get up there? Like, how did I connect into that? How would I have done that? Do I have the skills to do that, Or, oh, you think all these undercovers are after you. Well, what are they trying to get from you? Oh, well, I have, $10 of meth on me. Well, yeah, exactly. But they could find a ton of people all over the place that have that amount of stuff on them. Why are they having this huge undercover secret operation to get you? Wouldn't they just arrest you already if they had all this stuff on you? And kind of talk things through. And hopefully that kind of gets through to them, because I know that there was times where people sat down and talked to me and were able to get through to me. And I was able to eventually get help. And the good thing about meth is when you're getting off of it, at least, is, the come down is not as crazy as some of the other drugs. If you can get a nice, safe place to sleep, hydrate a bunch, eat as much as you can because you're going to be starving. And when you get through that detox and you start to feel a little bit better, it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take, it took me months before I finally had a little bit more energy and stuff. But if you could stay away from a lot of that scene and really distance yourself and really start to focus on sobriety and stuff like that, you'll feel a lot better. And I'll finish on this. Psychosis, I think for me, was so scary that it was the thing that actually pushed me into getting sober. It was almost the straw that broke the camel's back. I had experienced a lot with opiate addiction and multiple DUIs and felonies and jail sentences and overdose and just every bad consequence that could come from using drugs for 14, 15 years, I pretty much experienced. But the thing that really broke me was the psychosis stuff. It was to the point where it really pushed me to change, because I noticed that once I started to experience it, I would experience it that much faster. And it took me a long time to get it for the first time, but after I did, it would come back a lot faster. And it was it just wasn't good. And it's hard to run around and try and live your life when you are thinking that everyone is out to get you. And you get to the point where you're just so mentally exhausted with it all that you just finally want something different. So my hope is that if anyone's family member is out there experiencing this, maybe they're getting that one step closer to doing something about it. That's how it was for me. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for checking it out. Got a bunch of podcast episodes out there on the channel. Feel free to check those out as well. Send me a comment if you've been through psychosis, you've experienced it. What helped you get off meth? What helped you get sober from other substances? What helps you stay sober today? Thanks, guys.